History often feels like a slow river moving through centuries, civilizations rising and falling like tides. But every once in a while, a single human being appears and the current of that river violently changes. Empires tremble, beliefs collapse, and the future of millions suddenly bends in a completely new direction. Across thousands of years, humanity has produced kings, conquerors, prophets, and revolutionaries. Most are remembered only as names in textbooks. But a few individuals did something far more dangerous. They changed the way human beings think. And when thought changes, the entire world eventually follows. Imagine a young Macedonian king standing before an army at the edge of the known world. His name was Alexander the Great. Before the age of 30, he had conquered more land than almost any ruler in history. From Greece to Egypt, from Persia to the mountains of India, his armies moved like a storm across continents. Cities fell, empires collapsed, and cultures that had never met before suddenly collided. But Alexander was not only conquering territory. He was accidentally creating the first truly global exchange of ideas. Greek philosophy, Persian knowledge, Egyptian science, and Indian traditions suddenly flowed into one another. Trade routes expanded. Languages mixed. Entire civilizations began to evolve in ways that would echo for thousands of years. 2,000 years later, another man would shake the world in a completely different way. He carried no sword, commanded no armies, and yet his influence would outlive nearly every empire ever built. His name was Siddhartha Gautama. Instead of conquering land, he conquered something far more mysterious: the human mind. Sitting beneath a quiet tree in ancient India, he asked a question that would echo for millennia. Why do humans suffer? The answer he discovered would transform philosophy, psychology, and spirituality across half the planet. His teachings would guide emperors, inspire entire civilizations, and reshape how billions of people understand life, death, and consciousness itself. Then came a figure who would reshape not empires or religion, but reality itself. A quiet patent clerk working in Switzerland, staring at equations that seemed almost absurd. His name was Albert Einstein. With a few pages of mathematics, he would overturn centuries of scientific certainty. Space was not empty. Time was not fixed. And the universe was far stranger than anyone had ever imagined. 3 people. A conqueror, a spiritual revolutionary, and a physicist. Their lives unfolded in different centuries, different cultures, and completely different worlds. Yet each of them triggered a chain reaction that humanity is still living inside today. Empires spread because of one man's ambition. Billions learned to rethink suffering because of another's awakening. And modern science, technology, and even nuclear power emerged from a few radical ideas. But history hides an even deeper mystery. Were these people simply extraordinary individuals, or were they the rare moments when humanity itself suddenly evolved? Because if 3 humans could redirect the fate of civilization, one unsettling question remains. Who might be doing it again right now? Somewhere on Earth, perhaps a mind is quietly forming an idea powerful enough to fracture the future. History has shown us something unsettling. The world does not always change slowly. Sometimes it changes the moment one human decides to see reality differently. And consequences can reshape destiny of humanity forever. At first glance, these 3 figures seem impossible to compare. A conqueror riding at the head of an army. A wandering monk searching for enlightenment. A quiet scientist scribbling equations in isolation. But beneath their radically different lives lies a hidden mechanism that historians and psychologists have slowly begun to understand. Each of them rewrote the operating system of human civilization. When Alexander the Great began his campaigns in 334 BC, the world was divided into isolated civilizations. Greece, Persia, Egypt, and India developed largely in cultural bubbles. Ideas moved slowly, sometimes taking centuries to cross continents. Alexander shattered those walls. His empire stretched nearly 5,000 kilometers, from the Mediterranean Sea to the Indus River. But what truly changed the world was not the territory he conquered, it was the collision of cultures he created. Greek language became the international language of knowledge. Philosophers, mathematicians, and astronomers from different civilizations suddenly shared ideas. The famous Library of Alexandria would later emerge from this cultural explosion, storing knowledge from across the known world. In many ways, Alexander accidentally created the first globalized intellectual network. But if Alexander connected civilizations physically, Siddhartha Gautama rewired something far deeper: the architecture of human consciousness itself. Before the Buddha, suffering was often explained through myth, fate, or the will of gods. Human pain was seen as something imposed from outside. The Buddha introduced a radical idea. Suffering is not imposed on us. It is generated inside the human mind. This insight was revolutionary. Instead of conquering the external world, he taught that liberation comes from understanding internal processes: desire, attachment, fear, and illusion. Modern neuroscience has begun to confirm something astonishing. Meditation practices rooted in Buddhist philosophy can literally change brain structure. Studies show long-term meditation alters neural pathways related to attention, emotion regulation, and self-awareness. In other words, the Buddha may have discovered psychological mechanisms 2,500 years before modern science could measure them. And then there was Albert Einstein. For centuries, scientists believed the universe worked like a perfectly predictable machine. Space was fixed. Time flowed evenly. Gravity was simply a force pulling objects together. Einstein shattered that comfortable illusion. In 1905, his theory of relativity revealed that space and time are not separate things. They are woven together into something called spacetime, a flexible fabric that bends around massive objects. Gravity, he showed, is not really a force. It is the curvature of the universe itself. Planets orbit stars because spacetime is warped like a giant cosmic trampoline. Even more disturbingly, Einstein revealed that time itself is not constant. The faster you move, the slower time flows. Clocks in orbit tick differently than clocks on Earth. The implications were staggering. Modern GPS satellites must adjust for Einstein's time distortions every day, or navigation systems would drift kilometers off course. But perhaps the most unsettling twist is this. Each of these three individuals changed reality not through power, wealth, or armies, but through a single dangerous act. They questioned the deepest assumptions of their age. And when one human challenges the foundation of what everyone believes, the entire structure of civilization can begin to move. When we look back at history, it is tempting to believe civilizations are shaped by vast forces: economics, geography, population, technology. And often that is true. But every so often, something far more unpredictable appears: a single mind. Because when an idea powerful enough enters the human story, it behaves almost like a chain reaction. It spreads through cultures, reshapes institutions, alters technology, and eventually transforms the lives of billions of people who may never even know the name of the person who started it. Consider the long shadow of Alexander the Great. His empire collapsed only a few years after his death. At first glance, his conquest seemed temporary. Another ruler, another fallen kingdom in the endless cycle of history. But the cultural shockwave he created never disappeared. Greek language and philosophy spread across the Middle East and Asia, shaping education, politics, and science for centuries. When the Roman Empire later rose to power, it absorbed this Hellenistic knowledge, carrying it into Europe. And when the Renaissance rediscovered classical texts, the intellectual DNA of Alexander's world helped ignite the modern age. In other words, the conquest of a young king helped create the cultural foundation of the Western world. Now consider the quiet revolution started by Siddhartha Gautama. His teachings spread slowly at first, carried by monks, traders, and travelers along ancient routes across Asia. But over centuries, Buddhism would influence the philosophy, art, politics, and daily life of entire civilizations across India, China, Japan, Korea, Thailand, and beyond. Today, nearly 500 million people follow Buddhist traditions. Yet perhaps the most profound influence of the Buddha is something modern science is only beginning to understand. His teachings predicted a truth about the mind that neuroscience is now confirming: The self we experience may be more of a process than a permanent identity. Consciousness is fluid, constantly changing, shaped by perception and attention. An idea first spoken under a tree 2,500 years ago now echoes inside modern laboratories studying the nature of awareness. And then there is Albert Einstein. His equations unlock the power hidden inside matter itself. From them came nuclear energy, atomic weapons, and technologies that reshaped global politics forever. The same scientific revolution that allowed humanity to understand the cosmos also gave us the power to destroy entire cities in seconds. Einstein once reflected on this with quiet unease. Everything has changed except the way we think. That may be the most unsettling truth of all. Humanity now possesses knowledge powerful enough to manipulate the planet, alter genetics, and explore distant galaxies. Yet the psychological and ethical wisdom needed to guide that power may still be evolving. Which brings us back to the deeper mystery. History is not only shaped by armies, governments, or nations. Sometimes it is shaped by a single idea born in the mind of one human being. An idea capable of spreading across centuries. An idea capable of reshaping civilization itself. And somewhere, right now, perhaps unnoticed in a laboratory, a monastery, or a quiet room filled with notes and unfinished thoughts, another mind may be forming the next idea powerful enough to change the destiny of humanity. Because history has already proven something extraordinary. The future of our entire species can begin with just one thought.